Hi, I am Nitin Kumar. Welcome all you on Kredoz IS platform. I am your mentor for PSIR optional. As you know, PSIR optional has lot of nitty-gritties and side by side it is a quite a dynamic subject. In this video lecture, what I am going to do with you is going to discuss about the syllabus and syllabus into the minutest of details so that you can understand what are the things you have to cover and how to cover. Until unless you have a good roadmap, you are not going to cover the PSIR in the way what is the requirement of your UPSC examination. So let's begin. And as far as PSIR is concerned, as it is on display, there are two paper first and paper second. In both the paper, we have a two section A, section B. Again in the paper second, we have a section A and section B. In this video lecture, I am going to discuss about the section A. And as far as section A is concerned, it is about the political theory and Indian politics. Okay. Political theory. Okay, so let's begin. As far as the political theory is concerned, okay, you have to understand the meaning and the approaches. But before understanding the meaning and approaches, you have to understand some of the basic concepts like what is society is all about, how it began. Beside that, what is the state, what is the government, what is the political science, what is the political theory, what is the political theories, different dimensions, its significance, its contents. So let's begin. Here you have to understand at first some basic concepts. So some basic concepts like society, how it began and the evolution of the society. After that, about the state. After that, once you understand the state, what is the government and how many form of governments are there. Later on, once you understand, then you will able to understand what is political science is all about. Once you understand the political science, you will able to understand what is the political theory. What is the political theory? Now, as far as the political theory is concerned, let's begin. What is political theory? The very first thing. Then definition, scope, contents, and the implications of the political theory. Implication of political theory, not only in the ancient period but even in the modern period, how it is going to affect us. After that, what is the significance of the political theory? What is the significance of political theory? Significance of political theory. Now, as far as the political theory is concerned, it has a two types. It has a two types. One is the traditional approach and another is a modern approach. Okay, one by one we are going to discuss about nitty-gritties of the traditional approach, and then we will go for the modern approach. Until and unless we understand the traditional approach, we are not going to understand what is the modern approach is all about. Ultimately, you have to go for the comparison between the traditional approach and the modern approach. So let's begin with the traditional approach. Okay, so in traditional approach, as at first you have to understand what is traditional approach is all about. Once you understand, then you have to understand what are the different types of traditional approach. So as you know, it has a 4 different types, that is the philosophical approach, institutional approach, legal approach, and historical approach. So philosophical, next one is the institutional, then we have a legal approach, and last but not the least is a historical approach. So once you understand all these approach, then you have to understand what are the characteristics of traditional approach. Now once we finish the traditional approach, okay, then we will go for the modern approach. So let's see what are the things we are going to cover in the modern approach. Okay, modern approach. So why actually it began, who propounded it, then it contains what, and what is the aim of this modern approach. Okay, and then we have a characteristics of modern approach. So even in the modern approach, we have a different types of modern approach. Okay, so we will discuss about the types of modern approach, and it is a behavioral approach. Okay, after behavioral approach, we have a post behavioral approach. Now then we have decision making approach, decision making approach, and last but not the least anyway is a Marxian approach. So once we finish this modern approach and traditional approach, the next part of syllabus is going to be the theories of a state, and it is a very, very important and a crucial part of our syllabus. Now questions are usually being asked from this section. So next is the theories of states. Now in a theories of a state, you have to understand what is theory is all about. Okay, theory. So what after this, what is a state? What is a state of nature? This is the concept you require to have a full understanding. Once you understand a state of nature, then the liberty. After the liberty, what is liberal? Once you understand liberty, you will able to understand the liberal, and once you understand liberal, you will able to understand liberalism. Okay. Now, so once you understand these basic things like a state, what is the state of nature, what is the liberty, what is the liberal, and what is liberalism, then you will able to understand what is the liberal theory. Liberal, what is liberal theory? Once you understand liberal theory, you can compare it with the neo-liberal theory, and as you know, neoliberal theory has lot of views, and many states usually following the neoliberal theory. Okay, so after understanding the neoliberal theory, you have to go for what is the Marxist theory. What is the Marxist theory? After Marxist theory, what is the pluralistic theory? Pluralistic theory. And later on, after this, we have a post-colonial theory, which has got such a good relevance nowadays. So, as you know, many things are changing in the society at the national level or the international level related to the female, and certainly for that purpose, understanding of the feminist theory is a important one. Feminist theory is an important one. Now we are moving into the next part of our syllabus, and that is about the justice. Okay, that is about the justice. So what is the concept of justice at first? Concept of justice, and one of the important part is Rawls' theory of justice. Usually and frequently question being asked from this Rawls' theory of justice. Rawls' theory of justice. Now, one by one again. So, at first the concept of justice. Concept of justice. In the concept of justice, at first you have to understand what is justice is all about. Then the evolution of justice. The form of justice, like a distributive justice, okay, whatever we are seeing right now, how it came to this present form. Okay, we are going to learn in the evolution of justice. Now we have a different sort of justice, types of justice. Once we cover these types of justice, after that we will know about the different dimensions of justice, different dimension of justice. So after understanding the different dimensions of the justice, okay, next is the three thing. One is the justice, another is a liberty, and last but not the least is a equality. Okay, here you have to understand the relation of justice and liberty, the relation between justice and liberty, and relation between the justice and equality. Okay, And the next part as far as the justice is concerned, and it is going to be the most important part, and that is the Rawls theory of justice. Rawls theory of justice. Okay, so at first we will know about a theory of justice. Once you understand theory of justice, okay, so what was the Rawls thought on the human nature? Okay, so we are going to understand Rawls thought on human nature. Okay, after this, what are the hypotheses of the John Rawls? Okay, so hypothesis of John Rawls. Okay, then what was the principle of justice? What was the principle of justice propounded by John Rawls? So as far as the John Rawls is concerned, Rawls theory of justice, you have to understand what is the procedural justice, what is the substantive justice. Okay, so Rawls theory of justice, Rawls theory of justice. Here you have to understand what is the procedural justice and what is substantive justice. Okay, what is substantive justice, and at last we will go for conclusion. At last we will go for conclusion, and then we have to understand, after understanding all these basics and the Rawls theory of justice, we have to understand the communitarian critique. Okay, so what is communitarian critique? Okay, so as far as communitarian critique is concerned, you have to understand when and what, then two person who actually propounded this communitarian critique. Okay, so we have to understand about the, okay, Michael Walzer and Michael Sandel. Okay, about the Michael Walder, okay, and then the Michael Sandel. Now, last is the conclusion of the communitarian critics. Conclusion. If you go by this way, okay, with the detailed plan lecture, it is very easy for you to understand the PSIR. Okay, but beside this communitarian critics, we have other critics also. We have other critic also, and that is the libertarian, Marxist and feminist. That is the libertarian, Marxist, and last but not the least is the feminist. Okay, so once we finish justice, now the next part in our syllabus is equality. and PSIR's part of justice, equality and liberty is also very, very important for your polity part of the GS paper second. So let's see what are the things in the equality. In the equality. So at first you have to understand is what is equality is all about, and then we have a different types of equality, different types of equality. So it is a formal equality, equality of outcome and equality of opportunity. So it is a formal equality, equality of outcome, equality of outcome and equality of opportunity. Okay, so there are different sort of equality. Now once we understand the equality and the different types of equality, you have to understand relationship between the equality, liberty and the freedom. Okay, relationship between equality, that is the first, then liberty and freedom. Certainly we are going to understand what is the difference between the liberty and the freedom. So we are going to connect equality with the liberty and equality with the freedom. Okay, and lastly we will go for the conclusion here. Now in the equality we have to understand we have a different sort of action. First is the affirmative action. Okay, and as far as the affirmative action in the equality, we have a affirmative action. So as far as affirmative action is concerned, what, why, when, how. What, why, when and how. You have to understand this. Then what are the different sort of affirmative action? So different types of affirmative action. Then what are the philosophies behind affirmative action? So after understanding the philosophy behind the affirmative action, you have to understand what action India has taken, and affirmative action certainly have some kind of implication in the Indian scenario also. So affirmative action in the Indian scenario, that is the next thing. Affirmative action in Indian scenario. Okay, and if the affirmative action has been taken, there must have some kind of consequences also. And at last we will go for conclusion. Now the next chapter is about the rights. Again, it is important chapter for PSIR and important chapter for polity GS paper second also. So at first, what are the meanings and the theories? What are the meanings and theories? Once we finish this, we will able to understand concept of human rights. Concept of human rights. Concept of human rights. And then different kinds of rights. Different kinds of rights. And at first you have to understand what is it is all about, who actually propounded it, and after that we will go for different types of rights. At first we will go for human rights, then the moral rights, okay, moral rights, then civil rights, political rights, and then economic rights. Okay, so these are the things we are going to cover in a rights. Now again we are moving into the very important chapter, that is democracy. Again it is very important for your GS paper second polity part also. So next is a democracy. In a democracy, at first, what is the definition of democracy? Then what is the concepts of democracy? Then the features of democracy. What are the different features of democracy? Once we able to understand the features of democracy, then we will understand what are the different models of democracy, like representative, participatory, and then the deliberative. Okay, so these are the things we are going to cover in the section related to the democracy. Now comes another section, although very vital for the PSIR, not so vital for the polity GS paper second, and the chapter name is power. It requires lot of conceptual clarity. So at first we will go for the basic concepts. After that we will go for history part of concept and what are the main notion used there, main notions used. Okay, now main thing is that as far as power is concerned, okay, power is what? Okay, then the definitions, and another important part is the Max Weber's typology of power. Max Weber's typology of power. Okay, so even we have to understand what are the source of power, then what are the forms of the power, like military power. Okay, next is the theories of power. Once we understand what is power, definition of power, what is the Max Weber's topology of power, what is the source of power, what are different forms of the power, what are the theories of power, then we will move into the next segment, that is what is hegemony. Okay, so a student usually not able to understand what is the difference between the power and the hegemony. So here we have a hegemony. So at first, what is hegemony, then the definitions, after this what are the different notions of the hegemony, then what was the history of hegemony, and then there are 5 dimensions of the hegemony. There are how many dimensions? 5 dimensions of hegemony. 5 dimensions of hegemony. Okay, so at first military, okay, military dimension, then the economic dimension. After the economic dimension we have a political dimension. Political dimension, once we will finish political dimension, we will go for institutional dimension, and at last we have a ideological dimension. Ideological dimension. So there are 5 dimensions of hegemony. You have to understand the difference between the power and the hegemony, and what is the military hegemony, what is economic hegemony, what is the political hegemony, what is the institutional hegemony, and what is the ideological hegemony. After that, after understanding the power and hegemony, you have to understand what is the authority and what is the difference between the power, hegemony and authority. Again here, the very first thing you are going to learn what is authority is all about. What is the Max Weber's topology of, again, Max Weber's typology of authority. So after understanding this, you have to understand what is the difference between authority and legitimacy. So next is the legitimacy. So everything which is legal is not going to be the legitimate, because until and unless legal things are going to be accepted by people in general or citizen of that particular state, that legal thing is not going to be called as a legitimate. So what you have to understand here is a legitimacy. So what is legitimacy? View of different theorists, view of different theorists. Once you understand different theorists, you have to understand the types here, different types. Now, so now last here, after the authority, legitimacy, hegemony, we have a ideology. Okay, next you have to understand ideology. So different political ideology. Now we are moving into the different section here. Okay, so ideology. At first, what are the fundamental terms here? Once you understand the fundamental terms, okay, you have to understand it is in the wider perspective, wider perspective. wider perspective. Now basically what is political ideology is all about. Okay, basically a political ideology. Now, so let's see political ideology. Political ideology. Political ideology okay, so some of the basic concepts. After basic concept, you have to understand what is liberalism. Once you understand liberalism, you will understand socialism, and then last here is a Marxism. After Marxism, okay, we will move towards political ideology called fascism. Okay, after fascism, Gandhism, and next is a feminism. Now, feminism. So let's begin. Basic concepts. Okay, basic concepts. In a basic concept, what is we are going to understand about here. After the different ideology, we are going to discuss about the political thought. Okay, even in the political thought, we have a Indian political thought and we have a Western political thought. Even in the Indian political thought, we have a ancient and modern. So one by one, we are going to discuss about the syllabus part. So basic concept, you have to understand what is the political thought. Now, a scope of Indian political thought. The scope of Indian political thought. Okay, so after the scope, we have to understand the salient features of Indian political thought. Now, one by one, we are going to discuss about the ancient Indian political thought, and then we are going to cover about the modern political thought. So at first, ancient Indian political thoughts. Okay, so you have to understand at first the basic concepts, then about the Dharma Shastra. Okay, here we are going to discuss about the Manu's theory about the Dharma Shastra and the Danda Shastra. Okay, so Dharma Shastra and Artha Shastra. Okay, basically here we are going to discuss about the Manu. Here we are going to discuss about the Kautilya. Okay, so once we finish both, okay, we will be in a position to understand what is the Buddhist tradition. Okay, once you understand the Buddhist tradition, we will go for the comparison between Hindu tradition and Buddhist tradition. Okay. Now, after finishing this ancient Indian political thought, we will go for the modern Indian political thought. Okay. So, modern Indian political thoughts. Okay. So, at first you have to understand some of the basic thing, what is the modernity is all about and how it is different from the ancient. Okay. So, what is modernity is all about. Okay. What is the social and political thought? After understanding this, social and political thought. Now, after understanding social and political thought, you have to understand the next thing, what is a modern political thought? What is modern political thought? Now, so you have to understand what are the evolution of the modern Indian political thought. Modern, so evolution of modern Indian political thought. Okay. So, after the evolution, we have to go for the different phases of, what are the different phases of modern Indian political thought. So, phases. Now, one by one, we are going to discuss about some of the modern Indian political thinkers, okay, like Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. Okay, this part of the syllabus of this PSIR is going to helpful, not only the history part, but also it is going to be helpful in your ethics, that is the GS paper 4. Okay, so next is the Sri Aurobindo Ghosh. Sri Aurobindo Ghosh. Okay, and after that we have a Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. Okay, certainly it is very important and very relevant. And then B.R. Ambedkar. Okay, and the comparison between M.K. Gandhi and Ambedkar is a very important part of our syllabus, and in the examination such questions are usually being asked. Next one is the M.N. Roy. Okay, once we finish this ancient Indian political thought, modern Indian political thought, then we will go for the Western political thought. So the next is the Western political thought. Okay, you have to understand at first the basic concepts here. So what are the basic concepts we are looking for? What is again the political thought, but from the Western political perspective. So for that purpose, we have to understand What is the meaning of West? Okay, so what are the scope of Western political thought? Then we will go for the classification, and this is one of the important part, that is the classification of Western political thought. Okay, Western political thought, that is the classical, medieval and modern. Okay, there are three types of Western political thought, that is the classical, that is the first one, then the medieval, and then last but not the least is the modern. Okay, so even you have to understand what is the relevance of the Western political thought. Okay, after this we will go for relevance of Western political thought, and then what is the significance for today, for today's world. Okay, then again we have divided the Western political thought in the ancient Greek political thought and the modern Western political thought. So ancient Greek political thoughts. Now, so you have to understand at first the basic concepts here. Okay, once you understand the basic concept, then we will go for the Socrates. Then after finishing Socrates, okay, the topics related to it, we will go for the Plato, one of the most important part. Then we will go for Aristotle. Okay, so we will compare between the Plato and Aristotle. Okay, this is the part, okay, of the ancient Western political thought. After that we will move into the modern part, modern Western political thoughts. Okay, so even in this part you have to understand some of the basic concepts, So what are the basic concepts you have to understand? What is the Greek polis? Okay, what is the city state? What is the city after city state? What is the state is all about? Okay, what is the modern state? So after that you have to understand the modern political philosopher. Modern political philosopher. Now, after finishing this modern political philosopher, you have to understand the foundation of the modern state theory. Okay, foundation of modern state theory. Okay, then what are the characteristics, features of the modern? Characteristics, features. Then one by one we will study the modern Western political thinkers. Okay, we will start with the Machiavelli. The first one here is a Machiavelli, then the Thomas Hobbes, After finishing Thomas Hobbes, okay, we will go for John Locke. The third one is the John Locke, then John Stuart Mills. The fifth one is a Hannah Arendt. Hannah Arendt. Okay. Now the sixth one is going to be the Antonio Gramsci. Antonio Gramsci. So after finishing the Antonio Gramsci, we will go for the Jean-Jacques Rousseau. We will go for the Rousseau. And last, the eighth one is going to be the Karl Marx. Karl Marx. Okay. So this is detailed syllabus I have discussed with you for the PSIR paper first, section A. Hope it is going to be helpful for you, and thanks for watching this video. That's all from my side. Stay tuned. Take care.